Hi, I'm Ollie Russell-Cowan from Rad Season. I'm excited to be joined by Jessica Mahoney, who's the Chief Operating Officer for Surf Park Central. Jessica, how are you?
Good morning, Ollie. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Yeah, so congratulations on the role. So that you're a couple of weeks in, right?
I am. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a great time to kind of jump on board and really dive into the whole summit that's coming up in about 3 weeks. So,
Yeah.
really busy time to kind of get involved and get my hands around stuff. But great firsthand experience to see what it's all about. And having been there last year as an attendee, it's kind of nice
Hmm.
to be on the other side. So, it should be fun.
Nice. Well, I'd love to talk about the summit a bit later on if that's okay. But how did you get into this industry, like into surf parks? What's your background?
Yeah, well, so my background primarily has been in marketing, and I've kind of worked, over the course of my career with all different kinds of brands and different aspects of people's lifespan, from consumer goods to tech and retail. And most recently, I was with a company called Aquatic Development Group, where I came in to kind of build up the marketing department there. They design and build water parks. And that's kind of how I started my foray into the water park industry and getting involved with all things wave pools, surf pools, and so forth. And one of the products that we launched there was called Epic Surf. So that was a stationary wave that you've been hearing
Mhm.
about probably in the market a lot. And we launched that about 2 years ago. So building the brand, and that really brought us kind of to the forefront of the surf industry, really learning what it was about and seeing the developments that are happening there with the larger surf pools and the surrounding areas around it in the parks, and where the technology is going, where the
Yeah.
business is going. So it's been kind of a really great experience to be involved in that firsthand, marketing a product and then just seeing and experiencing the industry from a overall kind of viewpoint.
Yeah. And with their kind of, well, I guess legacy products, wasn't that more involved with like water parks and like amusement parks and slides and things like that before it was Epic Surf,
Yeah,
before they
absolutely.
sort of had that stationary wave?
Yeah, I mean, ADG has been around since about the 1950s. They started as commercial pool builders, and then in the 80s
Okay.
got into doing the wave pools and designing and building water parks. So really involved in that industry when it first started up. And so it's interesting, a lot of the parallels that we saw in the water park industry that carried over to the surf industry, and kind of where
Hmm.
it is now, how it's really kind of a burgeoning industry and where is it going to grow and develop. And the experience that we got there and learned there is, we always kind of like to say, what's beyond the edge of the pool, right? So there's the wave, and that's, primary importance that creates the whole basis for what these surf parks are. But it's looking at that, how do you get people to these parks? What's the business surrounding the wave
Yeah.
pool and the surf pool? So really kind of got involved in that. They're great at doing that and designing, building parks. There's are several other companies that are in this industry. So it's a whole kind of another topic that we're looking at and discussing
Hmm.
as we, talk about and view this industry and where the growth is.
And how, like what were the main challenges when you were launching that
The Epic
product?
Surf.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing was kind of the whole building the actual wave and making it work. So,
Okay.
what ADG did was build it in their parking lot, the full-size prototype. Wanted to make sure that the wave really was going to do what we thought it could do, and bring
Hmm.
surfers in, professional surfers, to get on the wave and give us their feedback and the experience. So really to kind of perfect the technology. And we had several events that we would do there that we conducted over the course of like 2 summers, and actually even in the middle of the winter too, for some brave surfers that wanted to go to upstate New York and surf in literally 10-degree weather. So that was kind of interesting, but it was great. The experience that we saw there, and I think that's being recognized in the industry, that these dynamic waves and the stationary waves can really offer, is it's like a real surf wave that you can actually get time on the wave that's incomparable to what you can get in the ocean. So while they always say that's not the same experience as the ocean, and we're not trying to be ocean surfing, it's the
Yeah.
time that you get on the face of the wave to practice, improve your skills, and just really have fun also. Uh, that's something that's really going to be changing, I think, the surf industry overall, and how
Hmm.
people learn and grow, and what's the progression in surfing in general. So it's going to be really exciting to see that. And it's kind of
Yeah.
proven that that's happening from all the experiences that the surfers have been showing us, when they're getting on the wave.
Yeah, and we were sort of talking about that before. I mean, how it sort of like opens up to, people that have never surfed in the ocean, if it's inland waves, or if it's then like you were saying, kind of if they have surfed, then getting that practice, that time in, instead of sort of waiting out in the lineup for 2 hours, waiting for the wave, especially if it's competitive. It's kind of you almost you have your slot and you can go surfing within that time period, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was really interesting to see. Is there is a little bit different dynamic when you're out in the ocean, and it's kind of more of a solo venture, and you're out there and you're really looking for your wave and making sure that you get the right one. And you might go out for an hour and maybe catch 2 or 3 waves that are really good that you're going to get a nice ride on. Whereas if you're in a surf pool, you know that the wave is coming. You can depend on it. It's consistent. So there's a lot more kind of camaraderie that we're seeing and joking around.
Yeah.
People are not so worried about catching the right wave and making sure people are in your way. And they're helping one another and kind of having a good time and laughing and giving pointers and really kind of, it's a different atmosphere. So it was really interesting to experience that firsthand. Honestly, when we first held one of the events and we had about 30 people coming, all different ranges of levels, from beginners to experts, we had no idea what we were going to see or how the experience was going to go. And we just kind of sat there watching, going, all right, this is something, this is really pretty cool. Like, they were just laughing and having a good time and helping everybody and encouraging, and the cheering. That it was something that, even the surfers who were in the ocean all the time, they're like, oh, this is different. This is cool. I like this. They can really see how it could translate to the ocean. And one thing that was interesting too, is we had a couple of young surfers there that were in competitions, and they would come up and they practiced on the wave, and then they went out and did a competition. And we had the parents calling back on, hey, can we come back? The kid got so much practice on your wave that they were
really
so much better in the competition. They got their turns. They really nailed them. Can we come back again? So that was really encouraging. And, I think other companies are seeing that as well, and they're hearing it. And it's, again, like, where is this surfing progression going to go now that there's more access to everybody? You mentioned having people who've never surfed in the ocean, which is me, right? I fully admit I am not an ocean surfer. Part of that is because there is that kind of risk of being in the ocean that I didn't grow up at the ocean. I never was there on a regular basis. That makes me nervous. I've gotten in the surf pool. I've gotten on these stationary waves, and I'm okay with that. I'm not a great surfer, but I wasn't afraid to get in and try it because there was that elimination of that risk. And, there's going to be people that are going to visit these surf parks that will never surf in an ocean. And they still are able to get that experience of what surfing is like and have that feel of, hey, I'm a surfer. That's like that aspirational kind of goal. Like, there's that culture out there that people want to be a part of, that you see kind of growing, especially with the Olympics and all of that coming to the forefront. So that's great to be able to do that, to really kind of broaden the ability for people to get on a wave and try it. And maybe these are people that are going to go to the ocean to, hey, let me do a listen. I want to see what it's really like in the ocean. And it just expands that opportunity for so many people, which is just really exciting.
And do you sort of see like subsets of the culture, almost like it creates its own surf culture, but around the park, right? So I'm sure that's kind of popping up like all over these locations. It's sort of, it creates its own scene.
I think
like
so.
It would be at a skate park, for example, or
exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think it's going to be interesting to watch that, how it translates from this culture where people, maybe in Ohio or wherever you're living, you're thinking, oh, Southern California, Hawaii, right? That's kind of what you always have in your mind. You see the movies, what the surf culture is. But what is it going to be like when you're in the middle of like Ohio and you go to your park and that's where you're surfing? How does that translate there? And I think there's so many opportunities for, look at retail brands, right? That could expand their reach now. People want to wear, all this different clothing and stuff that's people normally were only surfers at the ocean. So now it's carrying forward, and how does that kind of come across? We'll have to find out. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to watch. Is there going to be a difference? Is there going to be a separation, or is it all going to come together? We'll have to see.
Yeah. It would definitely be interesting. I mean, I've surfed over in Munich at the River Wave there, and you kind of see, I mean, it's right in the city in Germany, and it's
Yeah.
like it has its own scene, and like there's a definite surf culture on this river wave. So yeah, I don't see why not. And then it's sort of like as the years go on, and it's sort of, it just expands out. So
No, I think that's a
that's
great
cool.
point. I mean, you look at Germany and there's more people walking around with surfboards and there's no ocean right there. You're like, what's
Yeah.
going on, right? But river surfing is kind of like its own whole community that's really kind of picking up more. And there's more and
Yeah.
more awareness of it, especially like these stationary waves really mimic what a river wave is. And so it's a different experience. We would have ocean surfers that would actually come and try the wave. And it took them a while to get the hang of it. We had the river surfers come in, they jumped in and they're off and running. And then you've got some of these pro surfers that are like, oh, it's a different kind of feeling to get on that wave where you're pushing down versus up. And so it's kind of fun that they get the opportunity, I think, to do both, right?
Yeah.
Opens your experiences to new things.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And so now kind of going from that director of marketing role at ADG to Surf Park Central, how's that been? Because that's sort of then, I guess, going from the manufacturing side and actually building these parks to then having working with this platform that's kind of across everything.
Right. Yeah. So it's been great, actually. It's a really fun experience. And when I talked to the guys over at Surf Park and they were looking for someone to kind of come in and help them really expand and grow what Surf Park Central is and what the summit can be, I was really excited for this opportunity because having been in the water park industry for the last 8 years and getting into the surf market and watching it grow, I see the potential for it and I can just see where it goes. And especially I think coming with that marketing background too, a little bit, is you can just really feel like there's so much opportunity out there to really get the word out and expand, show people what this is all about. And so I see it really on this upward trajectory, which is an exciting time to kind of get involved in the business. So having that background on the manufacturer side, and like I said, I have been an attendee at these summits as well as so many other trade shows that I go to. I think I have a great perspective as to what really matters to people who come to these shows. What do they want out of it? What are they looking for? Not only from, like, say, a manufacturer's perspective of getting their product in front of the people who want to buy the ride, but also the people who are developing and operating the parks. Having worked with them closely over the years, is to designing the parks and what goes into it and what's important from a business aspect. We're really trying to address all of those issues. So when you go to something like the summit, it's as much about the business of surfing and surf parks as it is about surfing and what the future is and the progression. So trying to really address everything that is important to all of the people that attend and really creating a valuable premium experience for them is what's going to be of prime importance to us going forward.
Yeah. And because there's so many different stakeholders involved with these parks and within the industry, I mean, what would you say? I mean, is it like the consumer experience? I mean, that's going to be like, that's going to be the number one goal for anyone, whether it's sort of, I mean, for all these different types of technology, it doesn't really matter, right? It's kind of just focused on, how are the people that are going to be going to these parks, whether they're surfing, whether they're watching, how can they get the best experience out of it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a huge thing, is like best practices in the business, right? What makes sense, because at the end of the day, you can build a great surf pool and have a killer wave, but if you don't have people coming to it and making the money, you're not going to be able to stay open. So there's really, what does it come down to? And some of the things we're looking at is, we've got people from, Wave Garden here and Urban Surf, and just talking about, not only just the wave pool, but what they're looking at doing around it, right? Like what is everything that goes into it? So food and beverage. How are people, what are you offering? Or is it sit down? Is it bar service? Is it waitresses? Are you having cabanas? Are you just having tables and chairs around it? How are they viewing the ride? How are they interacting? So all of that stuff comes into play. And, to address all of that, we've got a lot of leading companies in the industry like Bar Architects and WTI and ADG, Whitewater and Endless Surf, that have done all of that specifically in the water park industry, with their experiences being able to translate over. The water park industry started with a wave pool. There were, back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, there were individual wave pools that popped up, and maybe they had a little bit of, food trucks around it or whatever back
Yeah.
in the day. And it goes, well, all right, we got to keep people here. We need something more than just them in the wave pool. What do we do? And then the slides and all of the kids rides and everything, starts building up around it. So it's kind of like what's going to happen now at the surf park? It's not going to be a water park. It's a different kind of feel to it, right? The water parks are more kind of a passive play, right? You don't need to have a skill to really go there. You're just going, you're having fun, you're relaxing, it's enjoyable. When we look at the surf parks, you mentioned the skateboard industry, right? Like there's a lot of parallels to it. I also see a lot of parallels with like snowboarding and when that first started, right? So how do we look at what the full experience is and what do people need? So we talk about feasibility studies and measuring that. We talk about evaluating the best practices and lessons learned from the people who've been out there operating these parks. So really it's about sharing the knowledge so that we can build this industry, because one success leads to the next success. And the more that people want to participate and get out there, they hear about a surf park in one area, they get excited about one coming to their area, they travel to go to visit one. All of that just lends to the industry being successful overall. So that's our goal.
And it definitely, is that sort of thing, like for people traveling there and like whether it's going to Lemoore or something, or, like having that unique, having that like if they're surfing in the ocean and then they want that experience and they can get out there. I just had a friend who went from Portugal over to Switzerland, and he was he had like a couple days holiday, and he's like, I've never surfed the wave there, and I'm going to get out there and give it a try. And it's like right in the mountains, and, like an incredible location, right? So and with the summit, that's coming up pretty soon, and
so we kind of kick it off on the 16th with a VIP dinner networking event, and then all of the panel sessions are that 17th and 18th, the Monday and Tuesday. We've got we really built in a lot of networking there. That's kind of our prime importance, because we're all about connecting people. So we've got developers, investors, architects, the manufacturers, suppliers of all different sorts of amenities that we're going to be needing to look at to expand and build the business around the surf parks. We've got wave tech lightning round panels so that people can present the technology, they understand what's out there, the buyers, investors, operators can hear about the different options that are out there. Really, it's knowledge based and making connections and having those conversations that can really drive the industry forward. So we look to bring in people who are serious about developing surf parks, who are really like involved in the business and really are dedicated to trying to move this forward and are looking to get with the other people that we're going to help make the business happen. We're making waves in the industry, to use a little term there.
And like with the event, that's kind of just one aspect of what Surf Park Central does, right? Then the whole sort of connection and the networking of the platform, so people can, like within the industry, they can kind of connect with each other. And
no, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up, Ali. Yeah, we have an entire insiders network, right? Okay. And that is for anybody who wants to be a member and really have the education and information about what the surf industry is and the background is. So it's making connections again and sharing knowledge, but Surf Park Central also collaborates with like San Diego State University. There's an entire research department there that we're looking at consumer trends. And Jess Ponting actually will be talking a little bit about that and some of his findings at the summit that they've spent the last several months, kind of diving into and combing through all of the data. So there's a lot that goes on with that. We are also involved with sustainability and looking at the travel, surf tourism travel and the effect that has on the environment and the sustainability, and how does that translate into the surf parks and looking to the development of that. So it kind of all comes into play. So we look at ourselves as kind of a really trusted, reliable source for people to come to for, industry information. What is the value of the industry? What is happening with the consumer trends? Who are the people like kind of making things happen? Where are the parks in development? What stages of development? You'll hear a lot in the news, right? 150 projects in development of surf parks around the world. And they're in different phases. Where they're all going to go, who knows, right? Some are going to succeed, some are not. There's a lot that has to come into play with the money and feasibility studies and all of that. So we try to kind of bring it all to like a realistic standpoint and what's really happening so that you can kind of find out in one central place. So it's a great network, and it's proving to be really valuable to all of the members who are joining so far.
Nice. And like, out of interest, I mean, what's the timescale from like the idea stage of someone saying, okay, we want to try and put a park together in our location through to, you know, actually kind of seeing that through?
Yeah. Well, you know, when you look at these surf pools, they're huge, right? There's a lot of land that goes into having to build a surf park, and there's a big development there, and that's a lot of money. So it really kind of depends. I mean, it could be as little as like, you know, 2-3 years to 10 years. Really depends on the group that you have together, the location you're looking at, and the money that's involved, approvals and so forth that goes around. I mean, it seems like most of these projects that we're hearing about now are already kind of several years into development, right? So even just you know, you get the approvals and you're ready to go, and then it's 2 or 3 years sometimes in the design phase before you can get shovels in the ground and getting all of that up and built. And then there's the stationary waves, and is there going to be kind of those, do we call them a micro surf park, where it's built around the stationary wave, for example, and it's kind of a standalone, and you're in there, and that's obviously a lot less space, a lot less capital investment. Those might be quicker and popping up sooner. There's also can you put the stationary wave in conjunction with the larger surf pool, which we're really hearing a lot of conversations about. I know we had looked into that a lot with ADGs. You know, is there a component? Is that something? So they're in the larger surf pool for a while. What are you doing after that, right? You got your half-hour lesson on the surf pool, or an hour, whatever it may be. Now you go over to the stationary wave and you can practice maybe what you were working on in the larger pool, right? So you're really practicing now the time on the wave instead of the larger pool. You're paddling out. You're learning how to kind of get onto the wave or catch the wave and jump up and stand up. And the stationary wave, you're automatically standing up, right? You're on there, you're launching, you get in, you stand up, and now you're practicing your turns and your balance and whatever else you might need to be working on. Maybe you have a coach standing right next to you, and then you go back into the larger pool, and then you can practice it a little bit again, which is maybe a little bit closer to that ocean experience. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those develop. You know, it's hasn't happened yet. I think that it will definitely happen. You're going to see a stationary wave paired with a larger wave pool. You know, there's a number of companies doing it now. We've got Unit Surf has a pool. There's Flow Surf came out with one from, you know, Endless. And we've got ADG's Epic Surf. Kana Wave up in Canada has got another product that's coming out too. So there's a lot of different ones. Obviously, there's the City Wave too. So it's going to be interesting. I really think it's like on that cusp of like huge potential and growth that they're all of a sudden going to start like piling up. We saw that with the Flow Rider back in that was a new thing. You know, at ADG, we were also like heavily involved in, we built about 125 of those, you know, around the US over time. And you saw they call them like flow dogs, and they had the Flow Rider teams that popped up in all different parts of the country, and they had their own competitions. And while that was not a surf wave, it kind of shows the fun that people can have. You know, locally, right? Based around a certain, like you were mentioning before, you know, just a surf park in the middle of the country, and what is that culture that can build around it?
I know, like definitely pretty fun as well. I mean, I've like been over to one in Singapore and Bangkok and stuff, and I mean, it's sort of like you can get out there, and then there's like the whole kind of like the bar scene, DJ around what's going on, and it's just a good day out.
Exactly. It was really interesting to see, because that's a question people got a lot. Like, what's the difference between the Flow Rider and then like these, you know, deep water surf waves, like the Sea Wave and the Epic Surf? And, you know, we always said the flow water is really, it's just like a 1-inch sheet of water that's kind of going over formed surface. It is a great ride for the cruise ships, obviously the water parks. It's fun. You know, you can get on it. There's not a huge learning curve. You can kind of get on once or twice and have a great experience. You know, from surfing, right, that you're not going to learn that getting on a board 2 times if you're really trying to become a surfer or learning the skill of surfing. So these deep water waves, just like the real surf pools versus like, you know, a wave pool, it's about learning a skill, and it's about a sport. So that's kind of the big difference. You know, it's a real wave. It's a real surf wave on real surfboards. And we're really thinking, you know, it's a session-based thing. It's not get on once and get off and get in line again like at a water park. It's about learning and how to get on and all the tips and tools that you need to become successful down the line.
Which can go all the way up to elite level as well, right? Because I know that there's sort of like USA Surfing, for example. We're over in Texas practicing. The Wave over in the UK has the English surfing team over there. I think even Senegal were like practicing before like ISA, weren't they? And kind of
Absolutely.
so there's all these kind of country now that it's in the Olympics, then that opens up this whole sort of.
That's a great point too, because it's, and it's interesting, right? You have access now all of a sudden to a wave that you can build anywhere for practicing. So, if you look at the kind of when people talk about becoming an expert in something, right? It's like 10,000 hours of practice in order to become an expert at whatever that skill is that you're trying to perfect, whether it's skiing or snowboarding or surfing. Well, surfing has been really challenging to have that time, like 10,000 hours on a wave. How do you get that right in the ocean? That's really a hard thing to do over time when you're looking at an hour and maybe you're getting 2 or 3 kind of really good waves. So now all of a sudden people can go to these surf pools or on these stationary waves and get on a wave consistently you can be on that wave for an hour if you're in a stationary wave pool nonstop. So what does that do now to people's ability to perform tricks or to master some things? Because you can try something knowing another wave is coming. Whereas if you're in the ocean, you're like, all right, I got to maximize my time on this, wave. I don't know if I'm going to get another great one or not. Here you're like, oh, I know I'm going to get 20 in the next hour. No big deal. I'm going to keep trying this and see if I can't get this flip or turn or whatever it might be. Where does that take to the Olympics now? What are we going to see in the next, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever. Yeah. We saw that with snowboarding, right? And the different things they were able to do as people got onto it more and more. And it's going to be really exciting, I think, and interesting to see how there's no way this won't affect what it's going to be, what we're going to be seeing, because people are going to be able to access and practice more.
And with the majority of people, they would be on the beginner level, though. Is that kind of from the findings? Is that sort of, and from market research, are you guys finding that? Is it predominantly learners and beginners who are going to be using these parks?
I think it's going to be a little bit of everybody. I think there's definitely, you can't ignore the people who are beginners. I think they're going to be your bread and butter of the business. You're going to have the families coming, right? Mom's going to be bringing the kids because they're begging her to take a surf lesson. We want to surf. We want to do this. Okay, great. Let's go. There's a place that's an hour away. Get passes for the summer and you're learning your lessons. And I think that's going to be a huge portion of who goes. Then you're going to also have these surfers, the expert surfers, people who want to try these pools, who like, oh, I've been hearing about this. I'm going to look at like Kelly Slater's pool, right? Everybody wants to go and just experience this wave that's perfection. You're going to see these popping up in different ways around the country. And they're bringing their kids and they're bringing their wives or they're bringing their husbands. And it's, what are they doing, right? So you're looking at all that beyond the edge of the pool. What's the experience while they're there? So yes, it's going to be a huge market base that people are going to have to look at. So it's not just about the surfer, right? It's about the person who wants to be a surfer, about the person who's like, I don't ever know if I'm going to be a surfer, but I sure as heck want to try this. Let me get in there, just have fun and see what I can do and get up on the wave and have a good time. And maybe that's going to be something that they're going to do, a couple of times a summer for the rest of the course of their life, or they're going to bring their friends and go and hang out. So there's all different types of market kind of segments that we're going to have to attract and discuss and talk to, right? And how do you appeal to all of them? And that comes back into the design of the park and what's involved and what are you offering and then the culture that you're creating.
Mm-hmm. And where do you see, I guess, the future of these parks and of standing waves? I mean, is there going to be like a consolidation of the technology, and it will there'll be like a couple which will kind of then lead the pack, or are you seeing, there's going to be like more and more different types of technology used to build these places?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you look at the history, there's always a few, any industry that you look at, there's a few that kind of always rise to the top, right? Who's doing it the best, who's making the greatest product, who is reliable companies that you like working with, and where are people creating the best experiences. And there'll be certain technologies that I think will prove better over others, but that's all part of like the research and development. You don't necessarily know yet in the industry what's really going to work perfectly. And as people build these pools and more of them get out there, the ones that are there today and 10 years from now probably going to be different. There's going to be different technology that's out there that's going to evolve over time. So we don't really know exactly where it's going. We know it will advance. We know there'll always be new innovation because that's just the nature of the industry overall. And it'll be really exciting to watch it. Maybe there's going to be, if you look at, for example, endless surf, right, versus wave garden, the shapes of their pools are completely different. Let's see what happens. It's going to be really interesting to see, right, and experience it. It's where is it all going to come in? And maybe both are great and it's different experiences and they work great depending on the design of the park you want to do. And, I have full confidence in all of them that I think they're all going to be great. These companies that are building this technology, are experts in their field. They really know what they're doing when it comes to waves. And again, this is a new technology and a new industry that people are really trying to perfect. And it takes building them, and it takes surfers on them, and it takes lessons learned to keep advancing where it's going to go.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And if people want to find out more about what's going on at Surf Park Summit, or if they want to attend, what's the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to surfparkcentral.com. Click on Summit. It's going to give you all the information about dates and times, all the panel sessions. You'll see all the different people that we have speaking there. We've got people from USA Surfing, from ISA, the International Surfing Association that are going to be there. We've got some, really big name surfers that are going to be there as some keynote speakers. So check it out. It's a lot of information there. It's something that, you're not going to want to miss. It's going to be really exciting to kind of be, again, on the ground floor of hearing people talking about it and seeing the passion that's involved with so many of these people. They're so excited about where this is going and the parks that they're building and the developments that are happening. And it's just really fun to be a part of. Surfing culture is great. I mean, it's a fun industry. The water park industry is fun. That's one thing that I just love about it. And so excited that I get to stay in the industry with so many of this, friends and colleagues that I've made over the years that are kind of involved in both. And you just seeing how everybody kind of comes together. We always like to say, there's a lot of competition, but it's a small industry and everybody's friends and works well together and they share the experiences and knowledge. It's great to do that. Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, Jessica, thanks so much for your time. It's been great chatting to you, finding out more more about surf parks and the whole kind of behind the scenes of it all. And I hope everything goes well with the summit and look forward to hearing what happens next.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was great chat. Yeah. Thank you. Take care.